Hey, so I'm here for the finals. Finally, let's die roll on the draw with a pretty good hand. This is kind of what I'm talking about, just taxing probes being awkward. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna. Well, okay. Given that my opponent's playing Tron, I'm no longer the plan of casting a Taxian probe for mana. I'm just going to be try to aggressively try to find my mana leaks and deprives as aggressively as I can. So yeah, so I'm I'm just gonna fetch here. Shock life total is like totally irrelevant to this matchup, which is nice. So I think I'm gonna save the second probe for a later turn, so I can check whether he has Tron or not. Wow, his hand is terrible. Okay, I Grove, Clasm, Karn, Ulamog. I think that hand was a mulligan. I mean, I don't play a lot of Tron, and I'm not like great at decks like Tron, but that hand seems really terrible. All right, so Young Pyromancer is not terrible, but it's not great because he has Pyroclasm. I think it's still worth keeping, just because at some point I'll be able to find a spell snare for it, and then the Young Pyromancer will add actually quite a lot to my board. Maybe that was a mistake. Also, I think my opponent should not have played Grove before cracking his artifact. Sometimes you draw a Tron land off of that, but yeah, in any case. I think I might actually just play the Pyromancer, just force him to use Pyroclasm. That way if he's drawn the Sylvan Scrying or something, he doesn't have the freedom to use it. And otherwise I'm just casting Serum Visions this turn, which is relatively weak. And this sets me up to play Angler for 2 mana next turn, which could be good. Because he has drawn a Tron land, he's drawn another Karn. So Karn, Ulamog. Karn, Ulamog, I Clasm Tower. Okay. So yeah. So I don't know. If he hits on Tron, then I'm obviously in a massive amount of trouble. And he did. Wow, that's really bad. So my opponent's drawn both Tron lands and effectively like 3 draw steps. That's gonna make this game difficult. I guess it's fortunate that he can't actually cast Karn next turn. Right, he has to play these two. He only has 5 mana. So I'm just gonna try to find mana leak or deprive as aggressively as I can. That's really the only thing I can do at this point. So was that another Gurmai Angler is not the worst thing in the world. Because, alright, so at the end of this I'll have 8 cards in my graveyard. I'll have 9 cards in my graveyard, and then I'll have 3 cards in my graveyard. Okay, I can't keep the Gurmai Angler. Alright, yeah, so yeah, I don't know what to say. This is not. I thought this game was going really well for me, and now it's going very poorly. So that's Tron for you. Yeah, so I just want to increase, just like give myself the most options possible with my Snapcaster. Yeah, I don't know. This is maybe the second worst matchup after Burn. I think of the 3 decks I dislike playing against with this deck, they're like pretty much in order: Burn, and then this deck, and then the Esper, Lingering Souls, Tassiger deck. That's like this except with white instead of red and Lingering Souls in it. Is Oblivion Stone too? Sylvan Scrying. Okay, Sylvan Scrying I don't care as much about. Unless it means he's playing Ulamog next turn? Is that the case? 7, 10, 11? He's okay. Well, I don't think I can win anymore. But I guess we'll keep playing. So my out this game, I don't think I have one. But if I do have an out, it's to just try to burn him out. Just get in like exactly as much damage as I need to, and then hit him with Bolt like 5 times. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm hoping happens. Even though this exact thing happened, I still think that my opponent was wrong for keeping his hand. Like, he had to draw really well for that hand not to be terrible. As is, I'm just dead. Alright. Could put him to 6, which is not 0. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot I could have done about that game. There often isn't when they draw Tron, to be fair, just because the things their deck does, your deck interacts just so unfavorably with. So I like Kolaghan's Command. Kills like Oblivion Stones a lot of the time, which is pretty good. The removal spells aren't the worst. Like, sometimes they help you fight through like a Sundering Titan or like a Sundering Titan or a Wormcoil Engine. Like, sometimes. I think on balance they're not worth having in the deck. Thoughtseize is great. I think past that I don't actually have any good cards in my sideboard, right? The best alternatives are like these removal spells, Shatterstorm, Batterskull, Explosives. I can maybe have the Electrolyzes in my deck just as burn spells. I mean, I don't think is there anything in my deck that I actively don't want? I don't think so. I think you want all of the mana, as much mana as possible in this matchup, because developing your board as quickly as possible is so relevant. Like, you can't afford to stumble. Like, you can't. This isn't a matchup where you can just miss land drops for a couple turns and still win. So yeah, so I mean, I can maybe cut a Bolt for a Terminator or a Murderous Cut, but I think the bolts are actually pretty good. Or I could maybe cut a Bolt for an Electrolyze, which is slightly more reasonable, but I think still bad. I think the additional damage and the mana efficiency with Snapcaster are both too important. Like, I think the first Electrolyze is better than the third Bolt, like in a particular game. But I think both the first and second Bolts are better than the first Electrolyze. So yeah, so this hand's pretty good. It's got a threat. It's got a Thoughtseize. There's not. I don't think. I mean, there are worlds in which I Thoughtseize on turn 1, but I don't think it's. And I could probe to try to see if it's one of those worlds, but I don't think that's probable enough. Just even if I knew he had Tron and I had he needed Expedition Map. Like, even if he had 2 Tron lands in Expedition Map, you could argue that it's better just to get the clock out and Thoughtseize a threat. Or at least that's the case some of the time. And given that, I think that it's just too important to just play the Delver. I want to stop my upkeep because if it's a card I don't want to draw, I'm definitely going to Thoughtscour it away. I think Watergrave qualifies as a card I don't want to draw, so it's not the worst thing in the world to draw, but I don't think it's a card I want right now. So again, I don't have very many. The probes aren't going to affect my decisions. I'm going to find out about his hand now with Thoughtseize anyway. So his hand is Sphere, Star, Karn, Coil, Map. I'm going to take Expedition Map here. My plan is just to try to keep him off of Tron for as long as possible. Yeah, what did he get with Ancient Stirrings? Was it the plant? Yeah. Okay, so hopefully he doesn't find a second Tron land with this. I feel like both of these games went kind of the same way, where my opponents kept some borderline unplayable hands and then drawn Tron lands on turn 2 turns in a row, which I don't love, but whatever, it is what it is. Yeah, so he's got a power plant in his hand. Snapcaster Mage, I think I'm actually willing to draw, just because it cycles and it lets me get a bit more of a clock into play. So yeah, so I know his hand. He's still a turn off from doing anything super scary. If I don't hit a land off of this probe, I'm just gonna probe again, just to try to hit my land drop. Yeah, so his hand is just two fatties that I can't interact with, and then hopefully not another Tron land soon. So, oh, did he drop? Okay, I guess he's doing this regardless of what he actually has in his hand, but it'd be unfortunate if he drew Pyroclasm. So his hand is Sphere, Star, Coil, Karn Coil. So he still has a Chromatic Star in his hand, which I guess is the thing he wants to leave in play at the end of this, so I can't kill it. Alright, that's all very respectable. So Snapcaster Mage. I might just draw Snapcaster Mage again, just because it cycles. It lets me add to my board. I think it's probably fine. I think it's actually probably good to see his hand again, just to make sure I know what's going on. I think if he had Pyroclasm, he would have used it, and even if he does Pyroclasm, it's not like the end of the world. Like, it's not good for me, but okay, so Sphere, so Karn Coil the year before, and Stone, Sphere, Grove. Alright, so it'd be nice to draw a land, like, soon, like next turn. But, oh, and then he just drew Tron. Okay, well, it's unfortunate. I mean, this happening for me here is probably better for me than a lot of things, but I have basically no hope of winning this game. I think holding up Spell Snare is definitely not valuable enough that I'm willing to give up a land drop to do it. I guess I'm just gonna play Tasigur, like, alright, just gonna double in my lands, and then play this untapped. I mean, like, I don't really know what I'm hoping happens, but I guess maybe I can fight through everything in the world. I think he assumes I boarded my bolts out, but that's not true. He's just willing to make this play as aggressively with Karn, so aggressively with Karn. So now I'm kind of constrained on red mana, which is bad. Alright, I'm just gonna bolt Karn down, I think, and I think leaving up Leak and Snare is actually good enough that I'm not going to Thought Scour to try to hit my land drop. I mean, maybe I can beat the Worm Coil engine. I don't know. It's not probable, but it's within the realm of possibility. Ugin. Okay, don't think I can beat that. So maybe I can draw a Dreadbore that's like not in my deck. Yeah, now he's gonna get Ugin. I mean, if I think if I actually had an out to this Ugin, like if I did have his Hero's Downfall or Dreadbore in my deck, then obviously I'd counter that to keep him from getting the Ugin. But why did he get Urza's Tower? Does he have Emrakul in his hands? I guess I'm just gonna Thoughtseize him because I'm curious as to why he wouldn't get Ugin there. But yeah, I'm beyond that. All right. Nope, he just got Urza's Tower for fun. Okay. All right, good games. So I've lost in the finals twice, which obviously I can't complain about. Yeah. I don't think there was anything I could have done that match to improve my chances of winning. Just he like I think he kept hands that he probably should have mulliganed both times that were just so far away from Tron, and then he just drew Tron lands like pretty much as he needed them. Like you'd think that Ancient Stirrings makes it like pretty likely you find a Tron land that you don't need, but that's actually not the case. It's not improbable, but it's not super probable that that Ancient Stirrings will hit a distinct Tron land. Yeah. I don't know. Well, until next time.